Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Library Committee meeting on June 3rd, 2025. I will call on Julie Hale, our committee clerk, to conduct the roll call.
Thank you, Chair. Regional Chair Redmond.
Present.
Member Grant.
Present.
Councillor Foxton.
Present.
Member Martin.
Present.
Councillor Nowak. Member Palmer.
Present.
Chair Salonen.
Present.
Councillor Shantz.
Present.
And we have regrets from Member Griffiths.
Thank you. Today, I would like to acknowledge the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Shinaatin peoples. We recognize the enduring presence of the Indigenous peoples on this land and where we honor their historic and ongoing contributions to the community. I'd also like to acknowledge that June is Indigenous History Month, so be sure to look for opportunities to learn more about our Indigenous histories. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none. We will go into our presentation, which is item 4.1, and I will call on Nicole Neal, our Director of Corporate Finance, to provide this presentation. Or is it Commissioner Steffler? I have Nicole written on my paper. But
Hi, yeah. I guess Nicole may be running late, but I can go through the presentation.
Great.
And if she comes, we can go from there. Okay, so good morning, everyone. So from the last meeting, I wasn't at the last meeting, but my understanding was there was a discussion about the reserves and what reserves are. And reserves and reserve funds are a very common tool in the public sector. And it's really to help in terms of a few different ways you can use it, but really to kind of stabilize and smooth the tax increases. So you can use a reserve for capital. So capital can be choppy because you'll have large projects like building retrofits and different things like that. And so you use the reserve to help you plan that out over time. It's also can be used for contingency. So if emergencies come up, you need somewhere to go, you can have a little funding in a reserve fund. Next slide. So we have generally two types of reserve funds. So obligatory reserves, so they're very much regulated and by statute. And development charges is the one that you see in the library fund. And so that's very legislated in terms of how we use it, what we can use it for, and it's very specific to specific projects. So we have a larger development charges reserve for other things in the region, and that's all based on a background study that was done, and it's very legislated. It's very specific on the use of it. It's for growth type projects at a high level. That's what it's for. And then we have discretionary reserves. So those are ones that council will set up, and it's for specific purposes. So we have a main library reserve, and in this case too, we had a North Dumpies library reserve that was based on a specific donation. So how does money get into the reserve? So there's generally here how we plan for the library is operating surpluses. So when we come to a year, at the year end, we will allocate the surplus in there. The North Dumfries Reserve was based on a bequest. You can also like put regular contributions into reserve, and that you do that based on analysis and planning and looking at your capital budget needs. And that's when you would kind of determine if you need to put additional funds in. And also, we also allocate an interest return on those reserves too, based on the money we have invested. So next slide gives an overview of the 3 years for the discretionary reserve. It shows the ins and outs there in terms of the financing, the surplus allocation over the last few years, the interest allocation, and the expenditures. Next slide. So as I said, the obligatory fund is for development charges, and it's the development charge reserve fund for the library, and it can be spent on lease, construction, or improving buildings and structures. And this is all very much laid out, and it's very specific on the items that we can spend it on, and you can tie that into our capital budget plan. And then the next slide shows the 3-year development charge reserve movement as well, and what those expenditures were. And that's the overview, and we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Are there questions, committee members? Councillor Schatz?
Yeah, thanks. Can you just remind us where the money that's in the reserves comes from?
So through the chair, so how we fund this, how we fund our reserve for the library is we're funding it through operating surpluses. We have in the past had an allocation from the operating. I think we had that the previous year, and then we stopped it this current year. And I think that was $100,000. So it's kind of those two ways. It's through a specific allocation, through surplus, and then we also get an interest accumulation. So based on interest, and we'll put funds in based on interest earned.
Thanks.
Any, Chair Redmond?
Thank you, Chair Salonen. Wayne, can you just talk a little bit about how development charges are allocated and how they're generated? Is it a proportion of the geographic location where DCs come from, or is it a percentage?
So there's two kind of ways that it's calculated. So for residential, it's based on the units, and then for commercial, it's based on commercial and industrial. It's based on square footage, and then that then ties into the actual background study and actual specific projects. So when we did our background study in 2019, we actually laid out the actual specific projects that would be needed based on growth and the needs that we see based on the master plans, the community plans, and it's based on very specific needs within that, and then from that you create that calculation, and then you take what the needs are and you set that rate based on whether it's commercial or residential.
And I know we're not talking about area rating, but I'm going to assume that there's a great deal of variety in each township vis-a-vis the commercial DCs or the commercial interest rate or tax rate and the residential, right? So some townships would have far more commercial rates, which may skew what their allocation of the area rating would be.
Yeah, that's correct. So it would be dependent on specific projects. So it would be looking and depending on where that commercial industrial projects are, that's where that funding would go to.
Chair Foxton, or Councillor Foxton? Clearly it's too early.
Whatever, I've been called a lot of things. Anyways, just for the members, development charges are, the saying is growth pays for growth. So that's what development charges are. And in this, when it refers to the libraries, that growth means more stress or more people on our library, more resources needed. So that's why we collect development charges for the libraries to allow for that type of growth. Development charges aren't for everything. You cannot use them for municipal buildings. You can't use them for a lot of things, but they are to offset the cost of growth, just so you understand.
Any additional questions? Member Grant?
Hi, I'm just noticing the word handicapped on the development charges slide. Would disabled be a better term than handicapped? I feel like handicapped is pretty outdated to use.
Through the chair, that term, that's directly from the Act, so that's what's in the Act, so we use that terminology.
Member Martin?
Just a question, the North Dumfries Reserve versus the General Reserve, is there an allocation or how that North Dumfries is spent? I presume, I'm asking, is that open to the entire region or just North Dumfries? How is that allocated?
Through the chair, yeah, so that was a specific bequest, so that's specific, my understanding specifically for the North Dumfries, and I think previous meeting we discussed some of those, the things that will be used for that will be reviewed here at the committee in the future.
Councillor Foxton?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Yeah, it was the tailored bequest. They left it specifically for North Dumfries for preservation of our historical documents and archives. And so, although in the past it hasn't been used that way, I'm glad to see that this group, this library committee has turned its way around. Before, it was over $300,000, and half of it was spent on bike racks and stuff, and not within North Dumfries. But that's been corrected now, and it will be used as the bequest requested it. Bequested?
Any additional questions? I just want to confirm, Member Palmer, I just can't see you. Do you have any questions or comments you wanted to add in? Oh, there you are. Did you have anything that you'd like to add in, Member Palmer?
Well, I guess I was curious about one thing, but I don't think you have to spend a long time answering it. I am curious the process through which the needs are identified, and in that sense also prioritized for fulfillment.
So through the chair, so that's through the capital budgeting process and our annual budgeting process. So when we get to that time frame in the fall, we'll be reviewing the operating fund. We'll be reviewing what's in the capital budget, and that's a time where we make adjustments or have the ability to make adjustments.
Any other questions? Seeing none, that was just received for information, so we will move along to item 5.1, and that's our report on library services cost and benefit insight. I will call on Julian Kingston, our Director of Cultural Services, to introduce this report.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair. So this report is the recommendations we're asking that the committee receive the report on the potential costs and benefits of transferring the libraries to the respective townships, and that we look for direction for next steps in terms of whether to undertake further analysis, engage in public consultation, initiate the transfer by recommending it to council, or to take no further action. And this is in response to the October 2024 motion that the library committee directs staff to provide a report on the potential costs and benefits of transferring the library to the respective townships, and that the townships be consulted in the process. Getting into the highlights, we've been working on this analysis since October, and we've considered impacts on operational efficiency, service delivery, and governance as well, and looked at both a decentralized and a centralized model in terms of the township delivery. While the analysis found that a decentralized township delivery model could result in positive increase in integration and collaboration with other township services, there are very likely negative financial efficiency and service impacts with the potential transfer. And this is due to a number of factors, including the loss of in-kind resources from the region, potential cost increases or service decreases, and significant labor-related impacts and costs. Notable would be, with a decentralized model, would be a loss of economies of scale and potential loss in equitable standards of service across the libraries. We found that improved integration of library and township services would be possible through enhanced communication and cooperation between the library and township staff. The current model also already allows for the free use of library space for township programming. Looking at a centralized model, it has potentially to maintain some of those efficiencies of scale and service standards if we maintain the library as a consolidated centralized unit. But there would still be the loss of in-kind resources and potential cost increase, and again, significant labor-related impacts and costs. Under governance, the requirement to establish a new library board would come under the Public Libraries Act, and since those boards are, the Act specifically lays out the composition of those boards, there would be a decrease in sort of the direct township control over library governance. We recognize that the townships will have to do their own analysis on the potential costs of transferring the libraries, whether it goes as a separate board or boards. In both models, whether it's decentralized or centralized, there's likely increased cost and labor risks and possibly only marginal service integration benefits. And we feel that the benefits could be achieved through closer partnerships with the townships without incurring the financial efficiency, governance, and service risks associated with the full transfer. In terms of background, I think we're all quite familiar with the library and its services. We talk about that a bit in the report in terms of how the library includes a diverse collection of books and shared learning materials, interlibrary loans, local history materials, free internet access, and programming for all ages. We talk a bit about how the library administrative headquarters is owned by the region, whereas the townships own or in one case lease a facility for the branches. And we've been working alongside the CAOs to develop this analysis and have had monthly meetings with them to consult on the development of this report. And there's been several previous reports talking about the finances and analysis of governance options as well. If we look a little bit at operational efficiency, we can see that the library is, operates as a system of 11 library branches in one satellite location. In 2024, there were over 119,000 in-person visits, 1,200 programs. Residents board more than 261,000 physical books or physical items and checked out 165,000 digital items. So it's a busy system. Having that centralized delivery enables efficiency and economies of scales across those branches and reduces costs for shared services such as administration, procurement, programming, and IT systems. Under a decentralized township delivery structure, service delivery would likely be more costly and less efficient to provide. Under a centralized township delivery structure, economies of scale could be maintained. In terms of cost, the libraries have an annual operating budget of $3.18 million and a capital budget of $600,000. And the funding for the services is shared from across the townships. Shifting responsibility to individual townships could create funding disparities and financial pressure. This could result in an increase in cost for some townships or a decrease in services to maintain current funding levels. The libraries are also supported by more than $400,000 worth of in-kind regional services supports. To avoid service impacts, should the libraries be transferred, these in-kind supports would need to be provided by the townships or purchased with the potential cost implications. There are complex contractual and human resources considerations associated with the transfer, particularly under the Labor Relations Act and the Employment Standards Acts. Again, overall, the transfer of the library services to the respective townships would likely increase the cost of service delivery for residents. We talk a little bit more about cost information in the financial implications section. In terms of service delivery and performance, the library currently provides consistent and high-quality standard of service across the library system. In our benchmarking against our comparator libraries, we do quite well. We rank second for in-person visits per capita, first for program attendance, and we're in the middle of the pack in terms of circulation per capita. We did some recent public engagement and surveying for the libraries, and our key findings were that the library is has a very high satisfaction level, I think is probably the best way to put it, with 92% of respondents agreeing or strongly agree that they recommend the library services to others. 89% of respondents agreed that they, or strongly agree that they, overall, they were satisfied with the library's services. The library benefits from working within the region of Waterloo's reconciliation, equity, diversity, and inclusion priorities. And these extend to the library system with staff accessing training, shared resources, and programming to benefit township residents. Under a decentralized model, townships may have a greater ability to design and deliver library programming aligned with individual township goals and feedback from residents. However, service levels may vary depending on individual township priorities, funding, and administrative capacities, which could impact equitable access for residents across the region. Costs are currently shared across the townships in a decentralized model. Some townships may have to increase their costs to maintain the current service level or decrease available services to lower costs. Centralized township delivery model could maintain high service standards and consistency. But as noted above, transitioning the library to services to new library boards or boards involves complex contractual and human resources considerations, particularly under the Labor Relations and the Employment Standard Acts. Enhancing service delivery in alignment with individual township goals and needs could be achieved within the current model, exploring new programming partnerships or service changes through an updated service plan. As you know, library services are currently governed by a library committee who oversees the administration and delivery of library services and presents recommendations to regional council, which is the deemed library public board. The library is not a typical library as would be created under the Public Libraries Act. A typical library would be a separate legal entity from the municipality that created it. Instead, the region's library was created by a special provision of the Municipal Act, and it deems the regional council to be the board of a county library. As such, the region of Waterloo and the library are one and the same. They're not separate, distinct legal entities. If a separate if the libraries were transferred, then a separate legal entity library board would need to be created by the townships, and there would need to be a transfer of assets from the region to new boards by way of an asset transfer agreement. Should the regional council choose to change the current governing structure of the library, would lead to request a deletion of the Municipal Act, at least that provision within the Act. And creating new boards would likely have them created under the Public Libraries Act, which would shift the library governance. Again, the regional, those public library boards would be, by legislation, composed of a minority of elected officials and a citizen majority of appointed members. And again, a reference here that the new governance structure would likely introduce additional costs to the townships, including the 421,000 embedded annual costs currently absorbed by the region. If those separate library boards were created, then the townships would need to enter into an agreement of service with those library boards. This is pretty common in terms of how municipal library boards operate. And there would be, probably a memorandum of understanding between the board, the separate board, and the townships in terms of provision of administrative, financial services, IT services, and so on. And the townships will have to do their own analysis of what those costs would be to the townships. We've been working with the area municipalities, particularly at the CAO level, on this report over the last several months. In terms of the libraries, our frontline staff continue to hear from the public in terms of their feedback on the library situations. In terms of financial implications, we've already talked about the budget of 3.18 million and the capital budget of 600,000. How this falls out on their comparators is we are the third highest in capital expenditures from the 2023 numbers, and the fourth lowest on total operating costs, expenses per capita. So this would indicate that the libraries are run pretty efficiently. We do have costs within the library of about $33,000 to run our integrated library services system. If the libraries were decentralized, then those costs would be likely replicated across the new library boards. So there would be some redundancy and some increased costs there. You can see that in Appendix B, we've included and broken out the departmental supports of $421,000 for the libraries. We've also looked at transitional costs in terms of what the legal costs might be in terms of overseeing the transfer, and the estimate for these range between $10,000 to $75,000 plus in disbursements. The receiving townships would also likely require legal services to complete the transfer responsibility for the provision of library services, so there would be additional costs at the township level. In terms of sort of our conclusion on the next steps, overall our analysis found that there are potential service integration benefits to transferring the libraries to the respective townships. However, there are significant significant efficiency costs, service and labor relations, and governance implications. Enhancing partnerships with the townships to increase service integration and enhancements could achieve similar benefits without the financial, labor, and service risks of a full transfer. So staff are looking to the library committee for direction on next steps, and I believe the clerks have prepared a resolution. It's a little bit different than what we have in our next steps in the report.
Thank you very much. We'll go to Councillor Foxton first for questions.
Thank you very much, Chair. I found this report not disheartening, but raising my blood pressure. I feel it's a slanted report. I feel it's telling us how we're inadequate to handle our own libraries. That's not what we're asking for. Number one, the first thing we asked for was the financial numbers, what it costs. You do agree that every cent in the library, every staff is paid for by the townships, right? It's not paid for by the region. So we, in my opinion, don't owe the region anything. The buildings are ours, all right? There may be a clause to get out of it. Insinuating that we would have to do legal and have a cost on that, we're not stupid. I feel like this report is talking down to our country bumpkins. When we found the financial error, the first thing we did was not come to you. We went to lawyers, and the lawyers said yes and talked to the chair because the money was not handled as, in their opinion, appropriately. Not us, the lawyers, all right? So you should know the lawyers are already involved. So I found that insulting as well. Library, so the library building, the headquarters, I thought we paid for that. I thought that came only out of the townships. Are you saying you owned the building and we just did renovations? Just need clarification for that. That's the first question.
So the library headquarters building is owned by the region.
Okay, so we just paid for the renovations. Clear of that. Now, in the last report I heard, it was 13 libraries and 1 headquarters. In this report, it says 11. What's correct?
We have 11 branches, 1 satellite location, and headquarters.
Okay. On page 11, where's the data to justify increased cost and less service? Or is that just an opinion?
So the
Do you know it for fact that it would be increased and less service?
It does depend on, so through the chair, it does depend on which model you're looking at. The decentralized model is more costly because many of those services and costs would be duplicated. For example, the $33,000 for the ILS system. And then whether it's decentralized or centralized, you are losing the $421,000 worth of in terms of in-kind support from the region. So those costs would have to be absorbed by, those aren't currently in the library's operating budget. Those costs would have to be absorbed by the townships.
But we haven't gotten the breakdown in numbers, which is what we've asked for from day one. See, we haven't said we're separating. We want the cost analysis. We haven't yet got the cost of how it operated and where it's spent, dollar for dollar. Where is the dollars going? How many? And I hear the CAOs were not impressed with your report. I believe in one line it stated that there was X number of staff for X number of hours, and when my CAO dug down, it found out that the numbers that were used were from different organizations, and that our libraries have half those amount of staffs, and that we have the highest paid staff of all the libraries. So again, they were not pleased with that. I see that was pulled from the report.
Councillor Foxton, I'm just going to ask you to queue back in.
Please.
Thank you. We will go to Councillor Nowak.
Catch my breath after that. I'm sorry. I guess I'm at odds with Councillor Foxton. I thought that the report was well done. I know there's been a tremendous amount of work done by staff on this, and a lot of the comments that are in this report reference the KPMG recommendations. A couple of questions I have. First of all, if we were to choose the option for public consultation, how would that be different from what has already been done? And I'm hearing, after it was in the Kitchener Record the other day, I'm starting to hear from residents now saying, don't touch my library. I'm really happy the way it is. And I think the numbers have brought that forward. So how would that be different from what has already been done? Have you got a plan for that?
So the recent, through the chair, the recent consultation was more about getting feedback towards the library service plan. If we did further consultation on this, I assume it would be particularly on the question of, are people interested in having the libraries devolved to the townships? Yeah. And we'd likely have to do that through a series of town hall meetings or something.
Something like that. So additional time and effort to do all that. Okay, so I think one thing that might have, for the community representatives here, it might have been nice, it would have been a good idea for them to have received the KPMG report, just so that they had a significant amount of background. I don't know if it's too late for that to happen now, but I was able to access it through Google last evening and refresh myself on what it was all about. But the one on page 24 of the report, it does say that the centralized services, which is what we have it right. Currently, we have a centralized service.
That's correct.
Yeah. Basically, it says the centralized service is the most cost-effective option for the townships without the initial startup costs of other options. So, I think KPMG came out with a number of suggestions, a number of different options to follow. But the bottom line is, I think they've identified that the centralized system is the most cost-effective. So I don't know where this discussion is going to go today. I know if I were to suggest I move option 4 on this, which would be to take no further action, I'm not sure whether I get a seconder. Maybe I should just try and do that and see if I can get a seconder for that. So I'll move option 4.
Okay, so option 4 has been moved by Councillor Nowak. Is there a seconder for that at this time? That's seconded by Chair Redmond. We do still have a speakers list, so I will let those on that continue to go through, but that is what's currently on the floor as option 4. Chair Redmond is next, and then we'll go to Councillor.
Thank you very much. And just for our community members and anybody who's watching virtually, I would have to say this is not a new issue. We have talked about this for a long time. And as Councillor Nowak has referenced, we have had a KPMG report. I'm firmly of the view that there are 2 fundamental things that have to happen if we were not to support, and I do support Councillor Nowak's motion, and that would be that it would only be a change if it was predicated on better service to our residents and that it was at least as cost effective as it is now. The other issue, and I understand that Councillor Foxton has a lot of passion for this issue, we can't fight the last war. I'm not going to pretend that everything that has transpired at the libraries has been perfect, but anything that should have been rectified, I believe, in my view, has been. And I wouldn't want any area, township council, CAO, or mayor to have a nasty surprise. So while these numbers are a bit shocking and we can ask for clarity around the numbers, I think that it's fundamentally important that regional council have all the information, as do all the township councils, so that nobody decides that they bought a pig in a blanket and they didn't really know what they were getting into. I think there are areas that we could continue to improve. I know council members around the table have talked about better integration with Parks and Recreation, with making sure that community groups have open access, which I understand they certainly do through the township. I would like clarified, if it isn't under the auspices of the township or in partnership with it, is there a charge? I think all of those things are things that we could move forward with a dynamic discussion that continues to improve the experience of residents at our libraries. But I think that devolving our libraries at this point in time is not in the best interest of area municipalities or the residents who use the libraries.
Thank you, Chair. I am curious on your backstory of what kind of pig in a blanket you've bought. That was a bit of a surprise, but
I'll tell you later.
We have Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. I do have some questions, and I think where to Councillor Nowak's point, I think where I'm still struggling is the piece that Chair Redmond talked about, and that is cost effective. And so I need some more information on that. For example, and see if I can find my right note. So we've got a list of regional support costs to the library. So what's included in leadership support?
So that's a portion of my office.
So $89,600 of your time is spent on libraries?
That's correct.
Okay. Legal services, can you give me an example of what legal services might entail in last year's budget, for example?
So for example, through the chair, for example, we rely on legal services whenever we work on any kind of legal document or transaction with the library. So for example, when we were developing the memorandum of understanding around the service level agreements with the library, legal was quite heavily involved with that. Even talking about this report, legal has been very heavily involved in the preparation of this report, and particularly around the governance factors. So all of the in-kind support, we looked at what activities went on and across the departments at the region, and sort of how many hours of work for particular individuals went into support of the library, and then that was multiplied out by their total compensation, including benefits. So the in-kind supports are really salary in-kind support for the libraries.
Okay, Can you give me some examples on the communications, community engagement, marketing, resident experience strategy communications on those numbers?
Yeah, certainly. So for example, when we did the engagement survey for the service report, the communications team was heavily involved with that. In fact, the communication and strategy team did all the analysis for all the number crunching on that report, and that was a large survey of over 1,000 individuals. So there's a reasonably large amount of work there.
So in a year that we're not doing a survey, what kind of support would we receive from them?
Well, we have a departmental communications team, and they would help us on any kind of promotion or marketing or communications that we have around the library. So for example, if we open a new branch, if we add a new service, there'll be a press release to go along with that. There's a communication plan that goes along with those things. So we work quite closely with the communications team.
Okay. I did have some other questions. I'm just trying to find them at the moment. So you did an outline for us back in October, I think it was, of the costs, broken down by library, by branch. There's a line that salaries, wages, and benefits, and 56% of those are at headquarters, and there's no hours assigned to the headquarters staff. So in the bottom part of that chart, you had the total hours per branch, and then the cost per branch, which was really helpful. But 56% of it is for headquarters, and there's no breakdown of that. Can we get that?
Through the chair, so you're looking at how many hours we operate headquarters for?
So yes, no, how many staff hours? Well, I guess yeah, not how many hours does the headquarters operate, but how many staff hours are included there. There's $1.4 million in salaries, wages, and benefits allocated to headquarters out of $2.5 million in salaries. And I think if I did my math, it's 56%.
Through you, Chair, I think maybe if I could get Christina to just provide an overview of what services are provided by the headquarters operation. Who is there and what basket of staff and services are included in that, and specifically what they're doing.
So through the chair, library headquarters is our central administrative location. All library services kind of function through that headquarters. So all the full-time staff people, most of the full-time staff people, operate out of that headquarters location. As was reported earlier, all of our unionized staff members are included at headquarters. And there are 7 full-time unionized staff workers. There is myself and 2 of our supervisors. One of our supervisors is located out in the New Hamburg branch. And we have 2 part-time programmers, and we have a part-time driver and a casual driver. And then right now we have 2 summer students as well. So I think that covers everybody, but everything central to the library, so our collection procurement, processing, cataloging, interlibrary loan, the management of our integrated library system, and the administration of all of our books going out from headquarters to all of the branches, all of our supplies going out to all of the branches. Everything happens at headquarters.
Councillor Shantz, I'm just going to ask that you queue back in if you have additional questions. And before we go on to the second round of questions, I just want to confirm that committee members don't have any questions at this moment. Yes, Committee Member Martin.
I don't know if it's a question, but more of a comment, I guess. Okay. I guess I wonder about the objective of the whole exercise, right? What is our goal? Is it to affect services, or is it to affect cost? So what I hear repeatedly is people like our libraries. They're well received. Services are good. I don't really hear an issue with our services, like we've got a problem with our libraries and they're not accomplishing their mandate. So then it really is about cost. So just chatting with Mayor Nowak, I hear that it's something like $70 per household on the tax base. I don't know if that's correct, but if that's reasonable, I'm not asking for a specific number. But what I'm trying to say is, if we're trying to reduce $70 in a year, even if we reduced it by a significant amount, it's not going to amount to real dollar change. I also don't know if you just take it back to the townships, if we could actually decrease costs. We've heard about this before. We have the costs now. We're going to have the costs later. There might be some improvements, but I'm not sure it's significant to the point of going through all of what we need to do to get there. So then it distills down to just control. Control that the townships have control over their own libraries, which seems reasonable, but they sort of have that already. And then the control really comes back to the original objective, services, control over the services, so we can accomplish what we need to better. Can we? I don't know. So it seems to be a circular argument, and I'm just not hearing. It seems to come around the cost, and I'm just not hearing that it would be hugely significant. I know we can debate it, but that would be where my comment or concern would lie.
Thank you very much. I'd say you've picked up a lot on the undertones of what's been going on for, I think, as Chair Redmond said, many years, this conversation. Any other committee members who haven't spoken yet? Member Palmer.
Yes, just a quick response to Member Martin a moment ago in the discussion in general. It seems like the report and the motion on the floor, the whole discussion is posing an either or. And I just wonder if there's variations on this that could be explored or mentions better confirmed. But to the comment a moment ago about user satisfaction, I'd just like to add that, or to reflect on the idea that most of the people who respond to this kind of a survey are users. If they're users, they already have some degree of satisfaction. We're not hearing from the many people who are not users and why they're not. Where do they feel might be the shortcoming of the programming, the access, the hours are a big issue also. Just when is the building open and what's there once I get there. So I just wonder through all of this, why is such an either or? It's as if, you either want to be happy or you want to spend more money, or you don't want to spend more money. And not everything in life can be quantified. And libraries certainly, although there's a financial fiscal responsibility to the public, and I'm one of the taxpayers who pays whatever that is every year, there's also responsibility to look at the non-quantifiable idea of what is the quality of service and how does it enhance community life. And those vary so much across the geographies, the townships and the cities that are involved. Is there no middle ground? Are there no possibilities of separating on some services and not others, keeping the solid infrastructure that happens through the consolidated integrated board that we have, and yet allow each township or each municipality to look at its own programming, to its own scheduling. It's how it displays items, how things are stored, the daily ins and outs that might differ from one township to another. I won't say more, but I just ask about, are there other possibilities besides a yes, no?
Thank you very much, Member Palmer. We will now go back into the second round of questions and comments. Councillor Foxton.
Thank you, and I think Member Palmer hit it right on the head, in that so it's not everybody pays the same across the board. We pay way more than you do for libraries. We have one library. How many do you have? Yeah, we have one library. We pay more than you. A significantly amount more. Okay, so that's one of my qualms. I think it's what bothers me the most is the lack of the accountability for the dollar figures. And that's what bothers me most. Also, what's happened, which is being investigated. That's why I think a lot of times we've asked for the numbers. We're not hard set on separating, but I am hard set on accountability. And I don't think I'm getting that. I feel like I'm getting the runaround every time I come to a meeting. I want accountability, honest and truthful accountability. I don't want to be told that I'm inadequate as a township and not capable of running a library, because you don't know that. You don't know the quality of my staff, which is amazing. So my back gets up right then when you put in there, that we can't do it, and that there would be increased costs and less service. You don't know that. Also, what Councillor Palmer's talked about, we've asked to use the library for a variety of things. Although we're paying higher than comparators for the library, we're told we have to pay for it, even though it's our building. Okay, so we have to pay you a rental fee to use our building to run programs because you're not running them. And that's truthful. The other libraries are ran great. And we've told you before that our library is really poorly run, poor quality of programs, which is sad because it's a gorgeous building and could do so much. And my staff, my township staff, would love to run programs in it because it's an amazing space, but it's not allowed to be utilized. And if we ran programs for free, we still have to pay you to use our library. And so there's no cooperation between township and the library, which it also bothers me. And Joe mentioned the KPMG report. We got a report back from KPMG recently that they couldn't get the information from the region, and that's why they came out with the outcome they came with, because they couldn't get the full numbers from the regions. And similar to us asking for the breakdown in numbers. So that's what was reported to my CAO. And that's why the report was slanted that way and stated that we should hand the buildings over to the regions.
Councillor
And that got our backs up. But
I'd maybe just ask that your comments are either left at questions that you would like information back from staff.
or just commenting on Joe's comment. So yeah, again, I'm not saying we want to separate. I'm saying I want transparency. And I don't think I'm getting it. I'm getting told that I'm not capable of handling it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And I believe that Commissioner Regier would like to respond.
Yeah, just to the first question about financial accountability, the library committee and the library board approve the regional the library budget every year, and that budget is subject to an audit every year. So I would say that I'm comfortable that the finances of the library are completely transparent to the committee and to the board. With regard to the statement about whether or not library facilities are available and what the cost of that availability is to townships, I'd like to maybe ask Christina or Julian to just answer the question very specifically. How much are the townships charged for use of library facilities?
So through the chair, we do have a online booking form for all of our room rentals. You have to go onto our website to request to rent space, and our form has an option. You can only go through this form, and the option is you identify yourself, whether you're an individual booking program room space, or if you're a region or township member. And if you are a region or township member, there's no charge for using our library spaces.
Thank you.
Okay. We will move along to Councillor Nowak.
And just once again, I want to reference the KPMG report and to Resident Palmer's request for additional opportunities. I think on page 19 of the report, they identify 5 possible scenarios. So they have been identified as possibilities. The one I wanted to refer to Rod Regier on this, Commissioner Regier, is number D. And so I'm going to read it and then I'll give you my question. But the D suggests that the status quo with further clarification of roles, responsibilities, and decision-making process between Regional Council, Library Board, and the Library Committee. Explore establishing and appointing an independent library board that has community representatives, which I think is the way we've been going. As far as the challenges, suggesting that the status quo would involve the least amount of change of the 5 options. There is opportunity to formalize lines of communication, establish service level agreements, and form steering committees. So to Commissioner Regier, isn't that the way that we have been going over the last while? And what more can we do going forward?
Yeah, through you, Chair Salonen. Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Yes, we had a very fulsome conversation with the township CAOs around the KPMG service review, and came to the conclusion that there were these issues that did need to be addressed. We needed to have service level agreements. There was a strong desire to have community engagement on the library committee, and opportunities needed to be found for increased joint programming with the townships, because clearly where the townships are providing community services and the libraries have a strong interest in community services, there were clearly opportunities for collaboration. So we took some very specific steps to put these measures in place. We spent over a year working with the township facilities teams and our facilities teams on service agreements for each branch. Every branch, as the new members of the committee may not be aware, but the township representatives will certainly recall that we have a very detailed matrix of services that are provided by the townships in respect to each of the branches, and each of them are very customized so that they accommodate the special considerations for each facility. They're all unique in terms of their age, the infrastructure that they have, and that sort of thing. And we also took the step of, the committee took the step of putting in place a new terms of reference, and that terms of reference specifically invited community members to be participants in the committee. So we have now got 4 new committee members, which is adding tremendously to the conversation here even this morning, which is really a delight to all of us. And the community, and then we took also measures to get increased communication between the Parks and Recreation and Community Services teams of the townships and the library branches. And we have a service plan that's being updated right now, and will be brought to the committee to consider in August of this year. So there'll be an opportunity to explore further collaboration and the delivery of additional services and programs in each of the branches through that service delivery plan. So I think there's quite a lot of work going on. We've already accomplished a lot towards the KPMG objectives. There's more to be done, and we're very actively engaged in that process with our colleagues at the townships.
We'll go to Chair Redmond.
Thank you, Chair Salonen. I really want to thank Commissioner Regier and Councillor Nowak for sort of teasing out, which is sort of the essence of one of my questions, which is this whole conversation has teased out a lot of dynamic discussion. And I think it's led to marked improvements, and I think we need to go forward with those improvements. So I wouldn't want anyone considering the motion that's on the floor to think that that would stop that kind of dynamic process, even though we may not devolve them. It is quite true that I think Woolwich, Wellesley, and, well, no, not Woolwich, but Wellesley and Wilmot have 3 branches. Last year we opened an additional one in Woolwich, and North Dumfries has 1 branch. And I think that area rating is sometimes vague and it's not well defined. So I'm wondering if Commissioner Steffler could maybe just talk about the area rating and how they differ based on the tax base, because I think it's very germane to the discussion that we're having right now when we look at cost and value on investment?
Yes, through the chair. So how we levy taxes, it's based on assessment values. So the way we area rate for the libraries is we look at the full township assessment value, so the total assessment value for all the townships. And then that's the number that we use to then area rate. So that includes commercial and industrial properties, for example. And so we use that calculation, and then we divide it by the costs, and then that's where you get that allocation that was mentioned earlier, where for an average household, it works out to around $70 per household.
So it's fair just to underscore that if one township has far more income from employment enterprises, irrespective of what they are, I mean, they could be ag pits, it could be anything, that does skew how the area rating would then manifest?
Yes, because those businesses are part of the assessment base, and they would be paying for those costs as well.
Okay. And Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. I'm going to get back to a little bit of number crunching. So we have 10 full-time people at headquarters and 3 part-time people. So if I assume 35 hours a week for full-time and 20 hours a week for part-time, that gives us 21,320 hours per year. And if I divide that back by the salaries that are there, it comes to $65 an hour. Does that seem right? Anyone?
Through the chair, if we can take a look at that, and I think we just want a few moments to do the calculation, and then we can confirm that. We can come back with that.
Okay. And my...
Can I just add one more thing? I think I will say that includes that includes all benefits. It's not simply the hourly rate, it's the entire labor package.
So if I take off 35% for benefits, it comes to $48 an hour. Does that sound better? I'm assuming 35% is fairly, used to be reasonable.
Through the chair, I can't say that that's not reasonable. That said, I know that we're at 50th percentile market compensation, and that they've been through union negotiations pretty recently. So I was just going to double check kind of that timing and get you the hourly rate that you're looking for.
So the average salary for a librarian across Ontario, according to Google, is $32 to $46 an hour. So that would put us above the upper level of average. Is that where we stand? Like, I don't know.
Through the chair, I think we'd like to just maybe look at the calculations you're doing, and then we can compare and confirm. If we could have that time, I'd appreciate that.
I'd like more detail on what that number from headquarters is. We've had questions and concerns about how the allocations have been done in the past, and so I want to explore that, and I want to make sure that everything is fair for the townships.
Through the chair, if I could just ask for clarification then, Councillor. What we're looking for is how are the library staff compensated, and how does that compare just kind of to a market average?
What I really want to know is what's included in the $1.4 million of salaries. That's the bottom line. I want to know what's included in that at headquarters. And I appreciate the work that's done at headquarters, and I want staff to understand I'm not questioning the work you do or the value of the work you do. I'm just trying to put all these pieces together with questions that have been raised.
So it might be more appropriate for closed, but if we could do a compensation chart.
I was just going to comment through the chair here. We've managed to find the detailed file, so thank you for a couple of minutes to pull that up. We do have a pay rate per hour, comp and benefits by person. And a general librarian rate that we're paying is like under 40, 34 to 41 is our range. With it being what you're looking at the overall, you're seeing the manager of library services in there as well as the 2 supervisors, which does raise the average. But the general, like you were trying to compare what does a librarian make, we're in the range that you're looking at. And I'm happy to share that after the meeting, maybe as an email, just because it is confidential information.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Are there any other questions or comments at this time, committee members? No. Seeing none, I guess I will add my few questions or comments. I am struggling and kind of along a similar thinking that Member Martin had raised of getting down to what exactly we're trying to execute out of this. But I do also share a lot of the frustrations that my other colleagues have brought up, which are a bit more founded in historical as well as, well, I suppose even just now trying to break down some more numbers. Thank you to Councillor Shantz for raising up your questions about Appendix B. I guess I would also be looking for more detailed numbers. From my perspective, looking at Appendix B, it's not to say that it's incorrect. I'm just struggling with some of the numbers, not having further context for them. So if there could be more of a breakdown of how those numbers are calculated, I think it's important for us to know what kinds of in-kind costs and I guess also how we track those. Like I'm thinking, is it that, you know, when a person from one of these departments does an hour of work on the library, they're charging back their hourly rate? I'm just curious on how those numbers are founded. But in terms of what we do have before us, we do have a moved and seconded motion, and that is that the Regional Municipality of Waterloo provide direction to take no further action to transfer of Region of Waterloo branches to respective branches as outlined in report. Yeah, I was going to say, that's okay. That's all good. Essentially, I will just summarize that what it is. It's saying at this time to take no further action on devolving the branches down to the townships. So with that, I'm not seeing any further discussion. I think one thing I would underscore, at least from my perspective, is that we can still continue the conversation, as Chair Redmond said, of furthering services and also furthering getting more information that this committee is looking for. Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. And just to speak to the motion, I'm not going to support it for a similar reason to Councillor Salonen. I just feel that I'm not in a position to say that right now. I may be, but I'm not at the moment.
Okay. Any other comments or questions before we vote? Okay, seeing none, I will ask that you use your e-scribe to cast your vote. Yes, that does carry. I would guess I would look to see if any of the voting members on the committee would be open to a motion requesting some of those financial details that were a part of the discussion to come back formally. Sorry, so that carried, but I'm wondering if there's anybody who are voting members on the committee who are interested in formalizing, requesting that staff bring back that further detailed financial stuff based off of the discussion that we had today. Chair Redmond?
Can I just ask that that would be brought back to a closed meeting? I think we're very close to the line of crossing over things that should be done behind closed doors. And I would think direction to staff is probably sufficient.
Okay, it's being included on the tracking list, and I believe that your comments have been noted there. We do have the committee tracking list is now on our agenda, and it's just to be received for information. Are there any questions or items that the committee deems to require updates on this list at this time? Okay, seeing none. Is there any other business at this time? All right, so our next library committee meeting will be held on August the 27th of 2025, and I would now look for a mover and a seconder to adjourn the meeting. Moved by Councillor Nowak, seconded by Councillor Shantz, and all those in favor we can do by hand. That carries. Okay.